Namo Bhagavate Shri Ramanaya. The last verse that we saw last Saturday was the 40th verse. Karomi karmeti naro vijanan badhyo bhavet karma palam cha bhoktum vichara duta kritikartrita chet karma trayam nashyati saiva muktihi. If one thinks, I am doing the action, if one thinks that he is the karta, he is bound to experience the results of action. And he is bound to be bound. But on the other hand, through inquiry, he gives up that kartrutva bhava, the notion, I am the doer, then he gets liberated. So that's what we saw last week. Now, in the next set of verses, 41 through 43, we're going to talk about this liberation. What do you mean he gets liberated? So what is liberation? So let us see verse number 41. Baddhatva bhāve sati mokṣacintā. Baddhatva bhāve sati mokṣacintā. Bandhastu kasyeti vicārarṇena. Bandhastu kasyeti vicārarṇena. Siddhe svayaṁ svātmani nityamukte. Siddhe svayaṁ svātmani nityamukte. Kva baddhacintā, kva ca mokṣacintā. Kva baddhacintā, kva ca mokṣacintā. Together. Baddhatva bhāve sati mokṣacintā. Bandhastu kasyeti vicārarṇena. Siddhe svayaṁ svātmani nityamukte. Kva baddhacintā, kva ca mokṣacintā. The nature of Advaita must be properly understood. So also the nature of moksha should be properly understood. So here, Bhagavan Ramana Maharshi, he says, really speaking, moksha is not possible. Huh? We've been talking about this ad nauseam, and now you come and say that moksha is not possible. Moksha is talked about, is defined as removal of bondage. But if we study Vedanta, you will come to know that there is no such thing called bondage, because it is only a notion in the mind. There is really nothing called bondage. And if that were the case, where is the question of liberation? If bondage is not there, what to talk about? Moksha, liberation. Accepting moksha means you are accepting bondage. Accepting bondage is ignorance. Therefore, moksha in Vedanta is nothing but understanding that there is no bondage. There is no bondage, nothing to be removed. understanding that there is no snake to be removed is what is meant by getting rid of the snake. The good old rope snake example. How do you get rid of the snake? Understanding that the snake was not there in the first place. So there is no moksha, really speaking, in Vedanta. This is a figurative way of saying that. For the knowledge that there is no bondage. Once you know that the bondage is not there, there would be no liberation in your vision. Bandha moksha atitatvam, going beyond bandha and moksha, beyond bondage and liberation. That is the goal of Vedantic study. So that there is no need for moksha. It's beautifully said here. Baddhatva bhāve sati mokṣacintā. The chinta, the worry, the concern about moksha, about liberation and all that. The craving, the anxiety to be liberated, all that is relevant, that would be meaningful, that would be purposeful, baddhatva bhāve, if there is bondage in the first place. So a person should ask first, am I bound or not? Before going through all the trouble trying to get rid of the bondage. Unfortunately, we do not ask that question. We take it for granted. I am suffering, I am suffering, I am suffering. This is all because of bondage. I am bound to this. How can I get rid of it? How can I get liberated? So Vedanta first draws the attention of such a seeker by promising moksha. When you say, I am suffering, I am suffering, I am suffering. If you come out and say you are not suffering, you are all ananda, etc. Then the student, I say, what are you talking? I know I am suffering. You tell me I am not. So, the scriptures tell you, oh, you poor thing, you are suffering. Let me tell you, there is something called moksha. Moksha is there. I tell you how to get there. Jump on this path of self-inquiry. All that. Slowly, through that self-inquiry, you will find out whether you are bound or not. Actually, you will find you are not bound. So he says, bandhastu kasyeti. He is asking, who is bound? When you say, I am bound, in his usual style, Ramana Maharshi asks the question, what do you mean by I? What is it? Which I is bound? Tell me. The mortality of the body should not be a problem. Because we know the nature of the body. It is mortal. You know that. Why worry about that? The mortality of Atma is also not an issue because it is not mortal. That also you know. And where is the problem? When you say, I am mortal, I am bound, and all that, who is that I? Dig into that. Therefore, kasya bandha, who has bondage? Iti vicārarṇena, thus inquiring, you will discover svayaṁ svātmani nityamukte siddhe. Our own real nature is nityamukte. I am ever free. I am ever free iti siddhe. When that fact is clearly accomplished, when that fact is known, then bandacintā. Where is the question of worry about, where is the question of thought about this bondage? Once the bondage is negated, kvacha mokṣacintā. Where is the question of thought of liberation? So the jnani ever says, I am ever liberated. If one says so, that means, if one were to say on the other hand, I am now liberated, that means I was born before. So if one were to claim, I am liberated now, that means he has not studied Vedanta. So no jnani will ever say that I am really liberated. Someone were to say that, that means they have not studied. Does that mean you are bound? No, no, no. Are you liberated? No. I will not claim I am liberated. Then who are you? I am beyond both. I am beyond bondage and liberation. So, kvabandha cintā, kvacha mokṣacintā. Where is the question of bondage? Where is the question of liberation? Neither one is there. So we've seen this idea before. This is not new. For example, in the Amrita Bindu Upanishad, we studied na nirodha na cha utpattihi na baddho na cha sadakah na mumukṣurna vai vimuktah ityesha paramārthatah. I, the individual, is not there. There is no bondage. No seeker, no liberation, no nothing. Na dharmo na charto na kamo na mokṣah chidananda rūpah shivoham, says Nirvana Shatakam. That is Saddarsanam. Continuing, verse number 42. Rūpiṇyarūpiṇyubhayātmikā ca rūpiṇyarūpiṇyubhayātmikā ca muktistrirūpeti vido vadanti. Muktistrirūpeti vido vadanti. Idaṁ trayaṁ ya vivinaktyahandhīḥ. Idaṁ trayaṁ ya vivinaktyahandhīḥ. Tasyāḥ praṇāśaḥ paramārthamuktiḥ. Tasyāḥ praṇāśaḥ paramārthamuktiḥ. Together. Rūpiṇyarūpiṇyubhayātmikā ca muktistrirūpeti vido vadanti. Idaṁ trayaṁ ya vivinaktyahandhīḥ. Tasyāḥ praṇāśaḥ paramārthamuktiḥ. In Vedanta, we say that the duality, the division, that is the cause of all problems. And then transcending the duality is called moksha. This is the Vedantic teaching. Interestingly, people study Vedanta and they talk about mukti, moksha, and they divide mukti itself into several types. Mukti is said to be, no division, no duality, and then that mukti itself, they talk about different types. Do you see the contradiction? Mukti means a state of divisionlessness. How ironic is it to talk about different types of mukti? Different people categorize mukti differently. This is due to not grasping the essence of the teaching. So Ramana Maharshi says, Vidaha vadanti. Scholars talk about muktihi tri-rūpa. Three types of liberation are talked about. Some talk about 4 types. Salokya, sarupya, samipya, sayujya, all kinds of mukti is talked about. But here Bhagavan mentions 3. He says that people say, he doesn't claim 3. He says that people talk about 3 types. What are they? Muktihi trirupa iti vidaha vadanti. So many people talk about 3 types of liberation. And what are they? One is rūpiṇi muktihi. Then the second is arūpiṇi muktihi and ubhayātmikā. Rūpiṇi, arūpiṇi and ubhaya. Rūpiṇi means liberation in a state of jiva without sharira. Rūpiṇi. Rūpa means sharira. Rūpiṇi means a liberation in which the liberated jiva is embodied. The liberated jiva is embodied mukti. This is talked about by Jaimini in Vishishtadvaita. Where they talk about jiva goes to some place and has a body there with the sharira, with the body. Then there are others who say, no, that cannot be. Cannot be. Only disembodied state is liberation. Arūpiṇi mukti. This is talked about by acharyas such as Bhādari. Others talk about this way. Moksha means no body. And yet others are there. Ubhayātmikā. Both are possible. Both are there. With body, without body, both. This is especially said in Vedanta. We divide mukti into 2 types. Jivan mukti and videha mukti. You're all familiar with this term. We have talked about it. Jivan mukti, liberated while living. If you are liberated while living, you have the body. The body is there. And then videha mukti. When the body is dropped, body is not there anymore. Still liberated. So that is the mukti without the body. Thus people are again caught up in all these analyzing different types of mukti. So we are not going to get into all that. What Bhagavan says here is, if you ask me what is mukti, I will say it is the end of ahankara. That ahankara which divides mukti into all these several types. Yes, a funny way of saying things. Real mukti is the end of that ahankara which enjoys dividing mukti into all these kinds of several types. So even the division of Jivan Mukti and Videha Mukti is really speaking not correct. It's part of discussion, etc., it's okay. But once you go beyond that, don't waste your time in all this. Only ignorant people talk about all these. When we have shown that the whole world is nitya, what difference is there whether this mitya deha is there or not? I am that all-pervading consciousness. Billions of bodies are in me. One body does not end and one body permanently ends. What difference does it make? Why should I be bothered about one subtle body when I am different from all subtle bodies? Of course, different from all gross bodies. Therefore, Jivan Mukti and Videha Mukti division also is from the standpoint of only ignorant people. So, real Mukti, the one and only Mukti, is the end of this kind of classifying. Get rid of this ahankara which does all this nonsense. Then you are liberated. Therefore, he says, Aham dihi idaṁ trayaṁ vinakti. Ahankara continues in the name of classifying mukti also. Whichever way ahankara divides, tasyāḥ, praṇāśaḥ, let that classifying, let that ahankara which does all this dividing, classifying, numbering and all that, let it go away. Any division is only dvaitam. Therefore, destruction of that ahankara is a clear understanding that ahankara is nitya. I am not the vyavaharika ahankara, but I am that paramārthika atma. I am ever free. In spite of the continuity of this mithya ahankara, in spite of the activities of the mithya ahankara. So ahankara nasha is only in the form of understanding. Vedantic language, we call it mithyatva nishchaya or bhāve, falsification. This is paramārthamuktiḥ, real liberation. With this verse, the teaching part of Saddarsanam is over. So the essence of the teaching is ahankara is the cause of all problems, not the world. Not the world. This is Ramana Maharshi's repeated assertion. Don't blame the world. Don't blame the people. Your problem is your ahankara. So tackle that. That's the only solution. This is the first lesson. We have to defang ahankara. Defund that ahankara. You are now funding ahankara, boosting it, stoking it. Continue to do that. You continue to do that till you keep discussing whether this liberation is 1, 2, 3, 4, how many types are there? cut it all out. Defang. A cobra is dangerous only as long as the poisonous fangs are there. Once you take that fangs out, remove that, then it's no longer dangerous. Similarly, remove this poisonous part of you, which is the ahankara. This is the reality that we attach to that ahankara. That is the problem. Once you get rid of that, you can take the same ahankara, you can even wear that as a garland on your neck. Shivji wears that as an ornament. He is not afraid. So detoxify ahankara. This is the second lesson. Third lesson is this ahankara can be tackled only by the knowledge of Atma, the higher self. So you can get rid of this ahankara only through Atma Jnanam. In the fourth lesson is that Atma is of the nature of pure existence, which is not part of the world. It's not the property of the world. It's not a product of the world. Existence is a separate entity. It permeates everything. It gives life to everything. Everything else is jada. You see them sentient, active. By themselves, they are not. It is the Atma that enlivens them. It is not limited by any of them. Even when that goes away, even when the world goes to dissolution, entire world goes and everything in it goes, dissolves. Even then, that consciousness will survive, existence will survive. That existence, sati, is Atma. So, Saddarshanam, seeing that sat, existence, that is the only way to tackle this ahankara. And most importantly, that darshanam, that Atma darshanam, that Saddarshanam is possible only through Atma vichara. You have to do the inquiry. Inquire, learn, get the knowledge, be established in that knowledge. Now, in the last two verses, there's a little note about the two authors of this text. The first author, the original author is Bhagavan Ramana Maharshi, who composed the text, as I had mentioned, even in the introduction. He composed the text originally in Tamil. And there were 40 verses. And it was called, as I had mentioned, it was called Ulladhu, Narpadu. Ulladhu means that which is. So existence, sat. Existence. Narpadu means 40. So 40 verses that talk about existence. That is the title. Ulladhu Narpadu. Then what we actually studied was the Sanskrita translation of that original text. The secondary author is Vasishta Ganapati Muni. We get a reference about both of them in these two verses. I had mentioned this as part of introduction. Verse 43 talks about the original author, Bhagavan Ramana Maharshi. So let us read that. Saddarshanam Dravidavaṇnibaddham. Saddarshanam Dravidavaṇnibaddham. Maharshina Śrīramaṇena Shuddham. Maharshina Śrīramaṇena Shuddham. Prabandhamutkṛṣṭamamartya-vāṇyām. Prabandhamutkṛṣṭamamartya-vāṇyām. Anudyavāsishtamunirvyatānīta. Anudyavāsishtamunirvyatānīta. Look at that. Saddarshanam Dravidavaṇnibaddham. Maharshina Śrīramaṇena Shuddham. Prabandhamutkṛṣṭamamartya-vāṇyām. Anudyavāsishtamunirvyatānīta. So, Saddarshanam Dravidavaṇnibaddham. This teaching, which means, this teaching called Saddarshanam, which means knowing the Sat, getting the vision of Sat, Atma, the knowledge of reality, was originally Nibaddham, was composed in Dravida Vak, the Dravidian language, which refers to Tamil. Tamil language is called Dravida language. This work was originally composed Maharshina Śrīramaṇīna. It was originally composed by Sri Ramana Maharshi, and it is Shuddham, Prabandham, Shuddham, pure composition without any logical defects. The composition is free from defects, then only it is Shuddha. There should not be any fallacies, logical fallacies. It should be, the language should be free of any defects. The artha, the meanings that are conveyed, that also should be free of defects. Error in language, no grammatical mistake should be there, nor should there be any fallacies, flaws in its content. So it is very pure. It is utkṛṣṭam. Krishtam, excellent, exalted, the highest, the best. There are many perfect works, but they deal with worldly things. The subject matter can be anything: material science, arts, literature, description of nature. They're all good, without any defects. But what it talks about, there are endless works about aparavidya. They're all good, but something greater than that is the paravidya. And someone that talks about, some work that talks about, that is the greatest. A work that deals with perishable anatma, however great it is not the greatest. But something that deals with the subject of atma vidya, atma jnanam, paravidya, that is the greatest. That is utkṛṣṭam. Bhagavad Gita calls it what? Raja Vidya, Raja Guhyam, Pavitram, and all that. Like that. It's the content that makes it that. The original author was Sri Ramana Maharshi. My job was not that great. I just translated the great work of Bhagavan. So this is Vasishtha Muni speaking, the translator. His original name was Ganapati. But he was given the title Vasishta Muni. He was great in his own. On his own, he was great. He may be referring to himself on this verse, or might have been written by a third person also. We do not know, does not matter. Anudya means translated. So Vasishta Ganapati Muni has translated the original work in Amartya-Vāṇyām, in Deva Bhasha, in Sanskritam. The Tamil was translated into the Sanskrit work by Vasishta Ganapati Muni. He has Vyatanit composed this work called Saddarshanam. So he had composed this by translating the original composition of Bhagwan Ramana Maharshi. So with this, he says that all the glory goes to Bhagwan. That's what is meant. Finally, the very last verse number 44. Sattattvasaram saralam dadhana. Sattattvasaram saralam dadhana. Mumukṣulokāya mudam dadāna. Mumukṣulokāya mudam dadāna. Amānuṣa-śrīramaṇīyavāṇi. Amānuṣa-śrīramaṇīyavāṇi. Mayūkhabhittirmuni-vāg vibhāti. Mayūkhabhittirmuni-vāg vibhāti. Sattattvasaram saralam dadhana. Mumukṣulokāya mudam dadāna. Amānuṣa-śrīramaṇīyavāṇi. Mayūkhabhittirmuni-vāg vibhāti. So in the previous verse, we saw the glory of the original work, that is Shuddham, Utkṛṣṭam, etc. Here, the glory of the translated version is given. Muni-vāg, the words of Vasishta Muni, means Saddarshanam text is Vibhati, is also excellent. Not only is the original text pure, Shuddham, Utkṛṣṭam, excellent, but the translation also, this work is also brilliant. Vibhati. The function of this text, Sattattvasaram dadana. So the purpose is to give saram, the essence, the teaching of reality of Sat-tattva, to give the essence of pure existence as the ultimate reality. We generally know existence when it is associated with various objects. But the true knowledge is knowing that as pure existence, not associated with objects. So that pure existence, that is what this text gives. This Saddarshanam, Dadana, presence. This teaching gives the teaching of Brahmatattvam, Atmatattvam. That is what is presented here. It is Saralam, a very easy manner, very simple way it is presented. Through the teaching, it gives Dadana. It gives what? Mudam. Gives great joy to the reader. One who reads, studies, understands, gets established in that. He is going to understand his true nature as Satchit and Ananda. He is going to be established in that joy, that bliss, So it gives him great joy, mudam. It gives that ananda to mumukshu lokaya. All those people, all those who are prepared, qualified people who are desirous of liberation, who are taken up the study. It gives them that kind of joy. The word mumukshu indicates sadhana chatushtaya sampanna adhikari, a qualified student who takes up this study, gets the knowledge. He will certainly gain that knowledge, be established in it. Giving such a joy to such people, the words of Ganapati Muni, Vasishta Muni Ganapati, it excels. The words excel because of that. When you read this statement, you may wonder, is the author boasting by glorifying his work? To dismiss any such doubts, he adds, this work is like a mirror, just capturing and reflecting the brilliance of the original work. He says, my work, like a mirror, does not have its own effulgence, doesn't have its own brilliance. It is shining because it has captured the brilliance of the original. The original composition is brilliant, and so this work is also shining. So my work is like bhitihi, a wall that reflects mayūkha, the ray of light. This work captures the rays of Ramana-Maharshi, the words, the teachings of Ramana Maharshi. All glories belong to him, to Bhagavan, Ramana Maharshi. He is like the sun, and his words are brilliant like the rays of the sun. This translation, this translated work, it just reflects, that's all. It reflects the effulgence, the brilliance of the brilliant teaching. A mirror may look radiant, brilliant, shining and all that. But that radiance is what? It's not its own. Put that mirror in a dark room, what do you see? Nothing. So any radiance that emanates out of the mirror is because of the original radiant entity. It just reflects. The pratibimba, the reflection can be brilliant only if the bimba, the original, is brilliant. That is the glory. It's the glory of the original work. So any glory of this work is just borrowed. Brilliance of the original work. And Bhagavan Ramana Maharshi is amānuṣa-śrīramaṇa. He is not a mere human being. He is amānuṣa. He is considered as an avatar of the Lord. He is considered as an avatar of Kartikeya, the son of Lord Shiva. The mere fact, the love and reverence and devotion he had for Shivji in Tiruvannamalai. He is considered as the son of Lord Shiva, Kartikeya, Subramanya. So he is amānuṣa only, not a mere human being. Saddaršanam, that captures the glory of Bhagavan's teaching, shines. And because of that, the translated work also shines. With this, we complete this beautiful text, Saddarshanam. Such a beautiful text, just revel in that Sat. As I repeatedly said, this text is for meditation. Take each verse. Take one verse at a time, one a day or one a week. Study that, dwell upon it. Such a great work, such a great work. Satpratyaya kim nu vihaya santam hridyesha chinta rahito hritākyah katam smaramastamameyamekam tasya smritistatra dridaiva nishtha. This is the very first verse. We go back and read that, study that, to say that you must repeatedly study this text. And here very clearly he says, dridaiva nishtha, that abidance, firm abidance in that. Remember that, abide in that. That's the glory. Om Namo Bhagavate Shri Ramanaya. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shante Shante Shantihi. Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om.